and welcome to another episode of Grief in the Raw. I am your host, Kelli Holloway, and it is my honor to be with you this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are listening to this. It gives me just great pleasure to be able to talk to you more about grief. And we meet at the intersection of grief and life, and know that there are so many different things that are going on in our world that we feel heavy about, personally, professionally, globally. And I'm hoping that this little slice of intention helps you to process what you're going through, because I think it is valid not only that we get through these type of seasons, but that we hold space for ourselves and for each other. And so when I think back on one of the main intention points of this platform, it is simply to help you understand that you can give yourself permission to have a process in your grief. This is not a do's and don'ts list for grief. This is not even a guide. This is simply giving you that allowance and that availability to think from an area of, I am worth a process. I don't have to skip over that pain. I'm worthy to have discussion around it, to take it out, even when it's messy, even when it makes me cry, so that I can allow God to help me get through it. And so typically I am joined by a special guest that I introduce. We get into their stories. And the reason why I formatted the show in such a way is because I really wanted to elevate Black and Brown voices in this space, because I think a lot of people in our community feel as though they have to cover up that pain so that they can function. And my theory is, when you release that pain, or when you allow yourself to have a process, you are available to healing on both sides of that, healing for you and for others. And so in allowing those that I've come across their stories and they're an inspiration to me, or ones that I'm just learning about their story on the show, I elevate those and I honor those and hold space, because perhaps no one ever did, right? I have plenty of guests that tell me, I've never talked about this. And I think that's a travesty. So my small little way of influencing the culture is to let people have a process, share that process so that others can learn from it. So no guest today. This is a solo episode, which is both daunting and inspirational, I guess, because I typically try to get out of the way of the message and just ask really good questions to get us there. But today, it's just going to be me. So here we go. Cheers to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. Listen, August 30th was when we launched this show of last year. So it hasn't even fully been a year. August 30th, if you don't know, is National Grief Awareness Day. And I didn't even know there was a National Grief Awareness Day until I looked it up. So many don't. So please don't feel bad if you did not know that it was a full-on day. But when we first had the idea to launch the show on that day, I wanted to shine a light and awareness that people are grieving. And more often than not, you're at some capacity for your grieving, maybe even feels like a pressure cooker. And I wanted people to understand that the more we talk through it, the more we flesh it out, the better that will be. And so when I look back on a year almost of the show, and just all the beautiful lives that have been touched, but also the people that I've been able to meet and connect with, all at this table that we all feel like initially you're not supposed to be at, right? It really has been a blessing of my life. And so I want to express sincere gratitude for anyone that has listened to an episode and or clip, has shared with a loved one, has called me afterwards crying, saying that it helped you through a tough time, and everywhere in between. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me create community exactly where we are. You are worthy of community, so am I. And my hope is that something that you take away from an episode or a clip or something that I've shared on Instagram or Threads sparks in you the idea that your grief is nothing to push down. It's something to let out, and growing and evolving with your grief is the way to get through it. There's no size fits all. It's a process that we have to be slow and tend to, almost like a garden. And so I'll share with you my grief scale for today. Each show I ask the guest, and what I'm wanting to kind of facilitate is this conversation of amongst all of us that transcends this conversation, but also seeps over into your family and your loved ones and your coworkers of where are you with your grief today? So one would be, I'm really not affected. It's not bubbling to the surface at all. I'm functioning and I'm not really thinking about what I've lost. All the way to 10. 10 is it's really strong in my body. I can't get from under it, and it's getting worse by the second. I will tell you that I have been everywhere from 2 to 10. I have never been at a 1. Don't know if I ever will be, but I say that and I offer that to let everyone know that it's no sliding scale. It all depends on a lot of variables, what's going on in your life, both celebration and challenge, who you're around on a certain day or what you're preparing for. All of those things are items that either make our grief heavier or lighter to hold. I'm hoping that in community, wherever you are on your scale, you're able to hold it a little bit better and feeling kept by the community that we're building. So today, I'll be 100% honest, my grief is at a 2. And for the past couple weeks, it's been kind of low. And I attribute that to the seasons changing. At the end of the year, seasonal depression was definitely a part of my life in terms of just the heaviness that the season brings. And also I lost my mom in October of 2022. So anytime the leaves start to change, all of those feelings come rushing back, and they're right there at the surface. So today I feel lighter. It's getting ready to be summer here. There's so many different activities and things that my kids are involved in. And my grief has shifted in a way that I'm able to recognize it. It's more of a dull pain versus a sharp pain. And in the very beginning stages, and in any given day, depending on what happens, it can be super sharp or it can be dull. It's still there though, right? And I engage it, I take it out as much as I possibly can so that I can get a sense of what makes it heavier and what makes it lighter. So I'm hoping that each of you take the time to self-reflect and focus on where are you with your grief today. And that might help you to be more available for this conversation and your conversation with others. And in sharing that scale with each other, you might be able to have empathy towards someone else that is grieving, because you never know what someone's going through until they share or until you ask. Right. So I'm hoping that would be, something that you can take to someone else. So when I think about the 2 that I'm at, I'm both excited about that, but a little sorrowful too, because sometimes I feel as I move through my journeys of grief, as I feel better, my connection with my mother starts to widen, right? Like the space between us, the time between us widens, and that's a little sad to me. But I have to remind myself that is not something to feel guilty or shameful about. Feeling better on your grief journey does not mean that your loved one is insignificant or that their time here is anything less than purposeful. What it means is that you're allowing God to have his way with you and to help you go through this ebb and flow that is your journey. And so today I would love if we all not only thought about our grief journey, but I've got a question that I want to put out in the atmosphere that was really strong for me this morning. And it is, what is God requesting from you through your grief? And I think it's very specific to any one person. It's a variety, but I want you to really sit with and think about, what is it that God is requesting of me through my grief journey? And it might not be a podcast. It might not be a book. It might not be a discussion, but it could be a mending of a relationship. It could be a decision that you've been on the fence about that you need to engage with, and grief might be that thing that takes you from I'm thinking about it to I'm actually going to do it. But regardless of what it is, God is requesting something of you in this, what I'm going to call off season. And when he prepares us for those steps, when you allow him to order you, we're always going to come out better, and we're not going to look like what we've been through. I know you've heard that before. So if we're thinking through what God is requesting of us, I also want you to think, how is he speaking to you? In those really quiet moments when all you feel like you're holding is your grief, what do you allow him to say? What are you available for him to speak into you? Because he is speaking life. And where is he leading you? I can share personally, many of you know that after my mother passed, we decided to move to Houston, Texas. And so this is something that is no surprise. I talk about this often, but what I don't talk about is the angst and the turmoil that we went through in making that decision. On the surface, it probably looked like a pretty easy decision, right? Houston is a great place. I love it here. The food, the culture, the people. I believe it's something that God wanted me to find, almost like a diamond in the rough. Like I was the only person that didn't know Houston was cool, right? But more than that, because Raleigh, North Carolina was such a mainstay in my life, I didn't want to let it go. I had already had to reorganize my roles in life. And it seemed like just one more thing that God wanted me to put down and get taken away, right? So I was no longer a daughter to my mother. I was no longer a caregiver. And I was getting ready to leave my job and take a complete sabbatical. So I was no longer a senior level vice president at my organization. So all those roles started to slowly be taken away. And then I said, God, you don't want me to be a North Carolinian anymore? That's all I know. And I've never played with the idea of moving somewhere because I was anchored by my mother, and rightfully so. I love being her caregiver, but there were certain things that I just could not do and did not let myself dream about going and doing something different, or let alone changing paths completely. And so when the grief felt too strong to bear, and a lot of the things that I was reading and the discussions that I was having, even with therapists and doctors and, all the things that I was reading and kind of taking in, they all kind of said, don't make any major life decisions while you're grieving. And so I had issue with that because I'm like, I don't know how long I will be grieving. So to put everything on pause felt like a suffocation on top of the angst that I was feeling. I felt like I was under these rocks. And so I had to have a discussion with God, and I had to say to him, look, I know people are telling me don't make any life decisions, but I'm feeling like you are moving me in a direction that is different from anything that I have experienced in my life. And so putting it all at his feet and allowing him to do an overhaul. I mean, take away every single role that I thought made me, except for wife and mom, right? I allowed him to reorganize my life in a way that would serve him, and not knowing, really rolling the dice on how is this going to end up? Because taking a sabbatical and not having an answer for what you're going to do afterwards is really, really scary. But to me, it reinvested this thought that I am not valuable because of what I do. I'm valuable because of who I am and whose I am, right? So knowing that full right gave me this availability and this freedom to say, you can go, you can leave, and allow me to sculpt you in my image and make in you and build something new, do a new thing in your life in this season. But I can't tell you what it's going to be. And wouldn't we love to just have the playbook to just know for sure what it is? But I had to be available to my life shifting and changing. And I think that that is what he's calling us to do. When I answer that question for myself, what is God requesting from me through grief? He was requesting me to slow down. And grief temporarily disables us. All of our emotions, the things that we go through, even makes us question who our village is or where can we go to establish a safe space. Even more than that, I think it calls for us to have a slower life. So knowing that as I was really high functioning in my position and as a caregiver and doing all the things in all the ways, that was not the schedule that God designed for me in this new season. So I had to be open and available for it to shift and change. And so when it was time for us to move, I was very settled in my spirit, even though I still mourned the old life and the old me, because everything about the old me was tied to my mom. And so having a situation where loss helps you to build something new and be someone new, it's not a second chance, but it is a way and an avenue for God to have his way with how he wants your life to be fashioned. And so what began for me a really long journey of learning how to rest, that might be another episode, because I really had to settle my nervous system in order to allow me to do that. But what it turned into or transformed into was this opportunity for me to have autonomy over my day and my schedule and my life, to fill it with more meaningful things versus all of the busyness of just, doing all the things that really don't build a quality of life. I was able to skip over all the politics and all the things that make a day draining and really sit at my Father's feet and say, what will you have of me today? And I am very encouraged that he gave me this gift of voice and light to help others who are ciphering through their grief and wondering, what do I do when it turns so heavy? My answer to that is you got to put some other things down, because the grief is not going to change. It's going to be heavy, right? But in order to balance it and maintain it and tend to it, putting something down is absolutely necessary. So as things start to pick up for me once again, I had a moment maybe a couple of weeks ago where the schedule was just back to back to back to back to back. I'm talking meetings and consults and presentations, but also my husband was out of town. So the kids were all over the place and all of their schedules and all of the beautiful things that make life awesome. But it was so much. And then there was also the grief. That was also a factor in it, because now I'm missing my mom and I wish that she could be a part of all these really bright, wonderful things. And it was a reminder to me, because when I looked at my schedule, looked at the calendar, I had time blocked for like everything over that whole week. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I used to live my life like this. This used to be attractive to me, to have all the things. And it was like a moment of triumph, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all the things, I'm blessed and busy and whatever they say, right? All of those things, they used to be something that I would display like trophies. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but the realness of grief made me realize that that's not a life to attain to, not for me anyway. I gravitated to the slow. I want it to be soft. And there was a mourning in the fact that that life design no longer matches your availability. So during that week when everything was on fire, my nervous system was like, we don't do this anymore. We don't go back-to-back meetings. We don't meet and not eat. Like, we don't do those things. And so I'm so thankful for that reminder, because I realize that there's someone somewhere listening that is trying to hold grief and the busyness of a schedule that doesn't serve you anymore. And I want you to realize that you're not broken. Perhaps God is asking of you to put some things down so that he can help you manage and organize your grief and your life. And most importantly, your healing. So I want to get into the social media clip that I picked for this episode that really brings home some of the things that I'm saying. This is from Mr. Jerry Flowers Jr. I believe he is a pastor. I'd love to talk to him one day. So if anybody knows him that knows me, link us. But he has a really, really encouraging word that I want you to hear.
Believe it or not, slowing down actually speeds you up. See, because one of the lies of anxiety is it tells you everything is urgent. Gotta do it now. You're getting older. You're gonna miss out. You gotta do it. And so it causes for us to make decisions in haste. What God does in us while we wait is more important than what we're waiting for. Instead of trusting God's timing, we end up moving in haste, which causes for us to need a recovery season. And the time spent in that recovery season is actually longer than the time you would have spent just trusting God's timing, because haste causes for us to go at life-wrecking speed. So not only am I hurting myself, but I'm hurting everybody that I'm crashing into because I'm moving in haste. It reminds me of this parable that Jesus gave of the wheat and the weeds. So the good farmer went out and sowed good seed amongst the soil. And then while everybody was asleep, the enemy sowed weeds among the wheat. Notice, same time, same season, same soil. This lets me know that oftentimes God sends and counterfeits come in the same season. Just because the door opened doesn't mean it was God. Sometimes it's a spiritual ambush playing dress up. But here's the thing. Wheat and weeds look just alike in the beginning. So if the enemy can get us to move in haste, we'll end up picking weeds and thinking it was wheat. Believe it or not, slowing down actually speeds you up.
Oh, that was a word. And I'm so appreciative that I came across that and that God is allowing me to share it with you here today in this time that we have with each other. I feel like it takes a really strong body to hold the history of two lives. And it didn't occur to me until I was deep in grief that that is really what people who have been through a lot in life, a lot of loss, they're doing that over and over again, constantly reinventing themselves, assigning new thoughts and new perspectives as they shift and things ebb and flow. For people who have lost not only loved ones, but jobs or the death of relationships or a dream or any of those things that we want to keep close, but then they shift and change and fall away. Those are the opportunities that we have to say, okay, Lord, this has been taken. What are you replacing? Or are you? Those are the opportunities where we ask those questions so that we can get to the root of where we should be. Because I do not believe that God wants us to be stuck in our grief. Grieving for a long time, grieving is long suffering. Those things are a part of our life, yes. But when we ask those questions of what did this moment come to teach me? What is God grooming and growing inside of me that I'm supposed to take with me now that there is a void? Those are the ways that I feel that we can begin the healing process, the deep surgery that occurs when we allow God to have his way. And so one of the things that my therapist told me to do was to write a eulogy to my old life. Now, when she said this, I was skeptical. I'm like, oh, that sounds really morbid, kind of. But I sat with it long enough and I got into it. I love to write. I love to talk. You know that already. So that wasn't the hard piece for me. The hard piece was coming to realize that, yeah, there's still a piece of me that mourns that old life. Although I love the new and have been really explicit about explaining all the great things that are going on in Texas. Of course, there are challenges as well. That's life. But I had not given myself the availability to fully mourn my time in North Carolina. I didn't leave NC. I've lived there forever. I didn't leave Raleigh until I turned 36. So with this idea that I was going to retire with the organization that I was with, the idea that we were always going to live in NC, it never occurred to me to have a dream farther than that. And I don't believe that that was deposited in me until the grief came up from the surface. Now, perhaps it was always there. Maybe it was lying dormant. Again, grief gives us this fresh opportunity to engage our old ways and our old thoughts in a different way, in a different manner. And so when I sat down to write this eulogy, I was actually in North Carolina this past February. And I said, you know what? I'm going to spend some time in downtown Raleigh. And I actually found myself, unbeknownst to me, right across the street from where my mom used to work. So my mom was a devoted state government employee. She worked right in the heart of downtown Raleigh. And while the building that she used to be in was renovated, was changed, I think they changed it into a restaurant, I found myself in that same little area that I spent so much time. Because my mom was a single mom. A lot of times she would come pick me up from school, and then we'd go right back to her job, and I'd be working on a paper for school. At the same time, she'd be working on a report for work. And so to me, it was really purposeful. And I didn't realize it until after I sat and wrote at a little brunch spot that, man, I'm sitting right here where I spent so much time. To me, that was an aha moment, that it was a rightful time to share that expression. And so perhaps I'll share a bit of that eulogy at some point, but I do want to give you a little excerpt from it and tell you a little bit about what I discussed in it. I thanked Raleigh for my creativity. I thanked it for the optimism, the resourcefulness, the genuine manner in which it brought me up. I didn't really know a stranger, and I think that that's something that has helped me grow as I continue through life, and the people that I meet and the wonderful lives that I'm able to intersect and become friends with. And also the ways that my children show up in rooms, they're bright lights. I know that's because those good things were deposited into them in North Carolina. Nobody can tell me anything different. And while I thank Raleigh for everything that it had given me, I also identified that there were some growing pains. And there was something in me that said, is this where I'm always going to be? And allowing those questions to come to surface, allowing myself to change as my life does, because I do think that that's where we get stuck. When your life changes and you don't want it to, and you don't make yourself available to the change. So I had to mourn the fact that my life shifted and changed more quickly than I wanted it to. And I had to hold space for that. So I cried. I released it. I told Raleigh that my children and my grandchildren one day will know Raleigh by name and love it just as much as I did, because it meant something to me and it meant something to my mom. And so to me, it was a way to express to God that, yes, I still grieve. I still mourn. I know there was a reason that you plucked me from that garden. I don't know the answer yet. Still working on that, but I trust him. And so allowing myself to mourn that season, to shed those rightful tears, is what has made this move and this transition so peaceful. So I honor and thank my therapist for telling me to do that exercise. I hope it's something that you interject into your grief practice, whatever it is that you have lost, that your life has transitioned from the old to the new. I hope you give yourself the chance and afford yourself the opportunity to reflect in such a way that says, yes, while I mourn, I heal. It can be both and. So with the time that we have left, I always talk about how when anybody walks into a room, they come bearing a gift. I think I got that from T.D. Jakes. He talks about how everybody comes in and they come bearing a gift. And so I want to discuss a little bit about the gift that you get when you get grief in the raw. I'm building a ministry of presence. again, I want everyone to know and realize that they have availability to have a process. And I think that our knee-jerk reaction is to tell someone when they're grieving that, oh, it's going to get better. Let's get back to the way that things were. And in the perspective of the griever, things will never be the way that they were. So are we just going to be sad forever? Absolutely not. But we're going to allow our grief to breathe, ebb, flow, and change and evolve. I still seek relationship with my mother. I'm still available to that, even though that she's passed. So that might sound weird to someone, but I'm available for our relationship to evolve, because just like I'm so excited that she now walks and she is delivered and she has full lung capacity, I know that she looks down on me and she's so proud that we made this move, that we're available to a soft life, that we're doing all those things and all that rest that we talked about. We're actually making good on those plans. I know that she's happy. So in my mind, I imagine both of us giving each other the, yep, I see you, I got you. And that bond is never going to change and never going to go. But had it not been for my rest season to really be able to take out and examine my grief, I don't think I would have come to that realization, at least not as quickly as I have. And so that's what I want the podcast to be. I want it to be a space where you understand and adopt that, no, maybe sabbatical is not the answer. Maybe it is, and we can have that conversation too. Maybe moving across the country is not the answer, but maybe you allow yourself for 30 minutes, 1 hour to really examine and take out your grief in a safe space and allow other people to be brought into the conversation as you feel comfortable. That will help you to start your healing process on your own terms and give you that opportunity to express that, yes, I'm hurting and it's okay. That's the number one thing. So in the time that I have left, I want to share that one more piece from my eulogy. I wrote, "My soul became restless with loss. How could the city that gave me so much life break me into so many pieces with death? I felt a gravitational pull that if I stayed close to God, that no matter where I lived, I'd always be in close proximity right down the street from Mom." So I'm thankful for all that Raleigh gave to me. I'm thankful for all of the things that I continue to discover about my grief. It's a onward going process, but it has taught me that I have a voice in this, and so do you. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you've lost, know that it's okay to fall apart. Allow God to put you back together in His own time, and be available to your life shifting and to it changing. So I'll leave you with that question once again that I want you to ponder. What is God requesting from you through your grief? How is He speaking to you? Where is He leading you? What might you need to put down in order to pick something back up? I hope this time was helpful. I pray that we talk and meet again here at the grief table in the grief space. I am praying for you. Please continue through comments and messages, emails. Tell me what more you want to discover in this show. Who haven't I talked to that you'd love for me to ask questions and hear their story and their perspective on grief? There are so many different areas that we can go, and I want to be intentional about that time in that space. I pray about each and every guest that graces the mic. And so please help me with questions that you have or topics that you want to uncover so that we can use the best of our time to the best of our ability. I am praying for you and with you, Thank you so much for joining me. Much love. Thank you for joining me inside today's episode of Grief in the Raw. I hope that something we've shared today both affirms how you feel and also provides you with healing towards your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Visit kellyandco.com for more information about the show. Also, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, and follow the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Special thanks to Bethany Anderson, who is the producer of this podcast, and also Jeffrey Smith, who has been the composer for the music. Thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart. Peace and light always. Much love.